podcast. Um, First, I'll introduce myself. I'm Joseph Herzog. I've been a Lightning owner since, May. So it's still pretty fresh for me. And I'm here with, I already forgot how to say your last name, Joe
You're good. Joe Schultes.
Schultes. See, I should have gone
Yes.
with that. And so Joe and I have been talking on Twitter, just sharing our excitement about the truck. And we thought, why not share that excitement in public via YouTube, in a podcast, and maybe start a conversation. That's one thing that I've lacked here in Cincinnati. None of my friends are going electric yet, so I have nobody to talk about or nobody to talk with that's interested in this stuff. But Twitter has really has a great community of EV owners, and that's how I met Joe. So I'm eager to get to know Joe here tonight, with everybody. And Joe, do you want to introduce yourself or mention anything I forgot?
Yeah, my name is Joe Schultes. I live in upstate New York. I've been a Lightning owner since June of 2022.
Oh,
And we we love this truck, man. There's nothing about it that we don't love.
yeah. I'm jealous of the June 2022 because that's when I thought I was going to be getting my truck. But followers of my YouTube channel know it took a little longer than we anticipated. But so I think a good icebreaker when getting to know another Lightning owner is, I'd love to know, Joe, tell me all about your truck. I can see that it's Oxford white, just like mine. But
It is actually Star White. It's hard to
that's
tell.
Star White.
Yeah, this is the sparkly Star White that you can barely
Okay.
see unless you're up
Okay.
close to it.
Yeah, and yours does look like it's got a little more sparkle than mine, even in these two camera feeds. So there you go.
So my truck is a 2022. It was actually the first delivered in New York State, as far as I've found.
Whoa.
It's the extended range. Like I said, it's Star White and it's a Lariat. I wanted the giant iPad screen. That was my my bare minimum was I wanted that part, and it came with so much more. The Blue Cruise, the towing technology, all that stuff. About a month after we got this, we got a camper, which is ridiculously huge. It's a 36-foot, 9,500 pound trailer, right up to the max towing capacity. So we've gone all over the place with this thing and the camper, and it's served exactly what it's supposed to do, and we love it.
Yeah. Well, I think organically we may have found the two perfect co-hosts for this podcast because I've got an XLT with a standard range battery, which means I have the 12-inch landscape screen.
Yep.
So are you Android Auto or are you Apple CarPlay? Or are you
I am Apple CarPlay.
Okay, this is perfect because I'm Android Auto. You see,
awesome.
So we can provide multiple perspectives here and maybe argue why one's better than the other.
Yeah.
But okay, so delivery process. My viewers know what mine was like. And there were definitely some bumps, but to hear that you were the first in New York is pretty incredible. So it sounds like, everything ran smoothly. How was your relationship with your dealership?
My dealership has been absolutely phenomenal, even after delivery. I used DePaula Ford up here in Albany, New York. They were great. So what I ended up doing was I had the reservation. I got the email. I was wave 2. I got the email as I pulled into work, and I freaked out as anybody else did getting a wave email.
Yeah.
Because the week before I had been watching so closely and praying that my email would come, and it never did. So so I ended up calling my dealer on his cell phone, my salesman. I've had a long relationship with him. My first truck I bought with him was 2017. So I actually moved dealerships because he was working on a different one. I moved because he moved. I wanted to stay with him. So I called him on his phone immediately, and I'm like, dude, I got the email. Let's order. So he sent the order for me. I had been hemming and hawing, hearing that the orders were opening up. So I wasn't sure. I was going to do extended range. Was I going to go with the Lariat? Was I going to spend that extra money, that extra $10,000 for the free charger, all the benefits of the extended range?
Yeah.
So when I called him, I had my order ready to go. I gave it to him. And that was about it. I never heard anything else for a while.
Yep.
I saw the first Lightning get delivered in the last week of May of 2022.
Yeah.
I think it was Midwest somewhere.
Yeah.
And I was out camping, and I'm obsessed with this truck for the past year and a half. So
yeah,
anything that this guy's posting, I'm all about reading his blogs and everything he's put up. I forget his name. I feel terrible. I forgot his name. But a week later, I get a text message from my dealer as I'm sitting home with my how old was he at the time? My 3-year-old at the time.
Yeah.
We're playing out back in the backyard, and I get a text message, and it's a picture of my truck on the delivery truck pulling into DePaula before they even opened in the morning.
Oh my gosh.
I texted him back. I go, be right there. Scoop my child off the swing in the backyard and got in the truck and went down. 20 minutes later, I'm at the dealership. It was sitting right there when I pulled in. I was like a kid in a candy store. I went right to it. I didn't even go to see him. I just went right to the truck in the back.
Right.
Me and my son were looking at it. We went in to talk to him, and he goes, here's the keys. Go take it for a ride. I was like, seriously? Like, I've been dying. I took a ride in one about a month earlier at the New York Auto Show, and I was floored. So I couldn't wait to actually drive it myself. So I took it out on the street, and apparently his district manager or the regional manager had been in the building. So she saw me pull out and flipped out. She's like, who just took a Lightning off? Like, it was the first thing ever in the area. And she's like, what the heck is going on? So I come back, and he was like, oh, my manager freaked out. And I told her it was you. It was okay.
Yeah.
I went and picked up my dad. I showed him. I launched down his street and didn't tell him to put his head back. And he definitely felt that. He's like, dude, you got to have people pin their head back. That hurt. My bad. I was just so giddy and excited to actually have it. So I had to bring it back, leave it there, and then come back the next day to purchase it.
Right.
To do the PDI and everything.
Yeah.
And I got back in my old truck, and I was like, this thing sucks. Like, I immediately wanted out of it.
Yeah.
So the delivery was fantastic, though. It was almost instantaneous.
That's good. Yeah. Yeah, it's so different for everybody. I mean, so the first half of that story sounds very similar to my experience because, you hear the rumors about the waves, and you get this email that says, we're ready for you to submit your order. Like, I got mine from my dealership. And I think, now that we're sitting in front of our trucks, it's easier to reflect back on how confusing it was for some of us.
Oh, yeah.
The longer you waited, the more confusion and different stories you heard.
Not only confusion, but like disappointment too. Like I was going to be like broken if I didn't make those first 6 waves. Like I was so ready for this truck.
Yeah. Yeah. And like they said, submit your order. And I went in, similar excitement. I went in person the next day, and I sat and went through every spec of what I wanted. And then as the weeks wore on, I'm like, I don't think I should have been this early in the process. Are they sure they're doing this right? And then sure enough, it was like, oh, we jumped the gun a little bit with you. And then, it took over a year for it to actually become my turn.
Really?
Yeah. And it's just one data point in many. And I've kind of wondered about, so we all remember the first person on Twitter that had the truck. So for you, it was this person. For me, it was Sergio Rodriguez. He was the first person I saw tweeting about, like, I love owning my Lightning.
Yep.
But for those of us that weren't lucky to be in those early, like I would totally understand if Sergio tuned out of the delivery nonsense after he took his truck, because why would any of us care after we get our trucks, right?
I'll admit I did too. I really haven't been following. Somebody asked me a couple weeks ago about what the wave we were at or something. I'm like, dude, I stopped watching that stuff. Like, I'm way past that at this point. I'm just trying to figure out crazy things I could do with the truck at this point,
And it's probably better for our mental health that we tune out the moment we get our truck, because why would you keep going on the roller coaster?
There's a ton of negativity in it now too, because there's the price hikes, there's all that stuff. So it's unfortunate that that happened, but at the same time, I mean, it's the market. It's not just Ford doing that. You know what I mean?
Right. I always compared it back to, I briefly reserved a Ford Bronco.
Yes, so did I, actually. That's funny.
Right. And then, you don't, I mean, obviously we didn't stay the course with those reservations.
Yep.
So I canceled my reservation for that. And then as the months go on, you see people finally taking delivery of that Bronco. Not those initial deliveries; they're ecstatic, but the people that wait over a year for those trucks, and they're
Right.
like on their knees in tears in the dealership lot. And I always thought to myself, that won't be me. I hope I don't have to wait that long. And sure enough, I did. But they would always say, "Oh, it's worth the wait," and that was so frustrating to hear when you're still waiting. Because you're
Yes.
like, I don't want to wait anymore.
Right.
Like
I
I've
want to be
waited.
behind the wheel. Exactly.
How could it possibly live up to the expectation? But
Yep.
not to sound like a broken record, having lived with it now, I'm like, I can never go back. And
Worth every penny or every
yeah,
bit of the wait. Yeah.
yeah,
So one of my friends, Josh, and he actually lives in Massachusetts.
hmm
He was a reservationist, never got a email to order in the first 6 waves,
mm,
but found a pro in Pennsylvania
yep,
on a lot, and he drove down there. Well, actually, he flew down there, picked it up, and
yeah.
drove it home.
Now,
And
was it like a mannequin? Was it a demo unit?
no, this was almost instantly after they all started coming out. I think if somebody backed out of it.
Oh my gosh.
It's a pro, and it's I forget the name of the color, but it's like a baby blue.
Yeah,
Absolutely gorgeous looking color.
yeah,
And we call them our unicorn. Anybody that has a pro in our circle here, we call them unicorns because
yeah.
obviously you can't get them now anymore. But
Right.
right at the beginning there, that $39,000 truck, that was
Yeah,
the dream. Um,
yeah.
and I missed that. That was wave 1 all over, and that's what he wanted was what was sold out after wave 1. So
So were you considering the pro? Like, let's say
yeah,
you were in wave one, that's where you would have landed?
yep, yeah. I
Okay.
was 100% considering the pro. Um, I had a 2019 F-150 at the time, so I was trying to keep the payments similar.
Yeah.
But then once I got sold out of it, I was like, you know what? I'm going to keep this truck for at least 10 years. I'm not going to,
Right.
I'm going to invest in it at this point. So
Right.
I went up to the Lariat.
Yeah. A similar story with me. I got hooked on the pro. That's, if it was, call it a marketing strategy, call it a bait and switch. I'm not here to point fingers, but it
Yeah.
worked on me because I was like set on the pro.
Yep.
That was clearly the best price proposition for
Yep.
me. And then sure enough, after you had jumped off the roller coaster of waiting, and a lot of us were still on it, it was like they're raising the price and they're not delivering as many, and it was frustrating. But it worked. They still got me in a truck, and I'm still thrilled with what I got. Secretly, I just wish it was cheaper, but I mean, don't we all?
Yeah. Yeah. That's life, right? Everything
Yeah,
is always getting more expensive. So,
yeah,
but yeah, this has been the best thing for my family. I mean, we started road tripping all over the Northeast, and we've never done that. We've never taken a pickup truck and blown $200 every time we go and take a road trip somewhere.
right.
This cost me $1.31 at home to charge up.
Yeah,
I can't argue with putting
right.
miles on it.
Yeah, and pickup trucks had always intrigued me, but the nail in the coffin every time when I was on cars.com or whatever, I'm like, it's expensive and I'm gonna have to pay for fuel.
Yeah.
Which was why this was such a unique thing to pop up,
Yep.
even if it was a little bit after Rivian. So speaking of road tripping, you
Yes.
mentioned road tripping. I've done a couple short road trips, probably by your standards. But maybe this is a great time to just touch on the recent news that Ford was the first company to announce that they're going to switch to the North American charging standard, aka the Tesla
Yes.
charging connector. What was your initial reaction to hearing that?
Absolutely pumped. Adding another 12,000 chargers to the chargers I can stop at, and having an option as a consumer was a huge bonus for me. I've had a lot of, we'll say, troubles with some of the public charging on our road trips. We've gotten stuck in a couple places, missed appointments and such, just because we plug into a charger, it doesn't work. We plug into a charger, you get 30 kilowatts instead of 150, and you're sitting there for double the amount of time.
Yep.
The infrastructure struggle in this country is getting better, but it's very slow, and this, I think, is going to set it right into overdrive.
Yeah.
We need it. Looking at other countries such as Norway, they're way ahead of the game. So,
yeah,
you know, following their footsteps and having chargers everywhere like they do there. And now we have 22,000 instead of 10. So much better.
Yeah.
You know, it's going to make anyone on the NACS standard have a more feasible going electric. You know, everybody's, I don't know if I could find chargers, this and that.
Yep.
That's a solution right there. You know, and I'm hoping that everything that needs to be done with this is going to be smooth.
Well, that's one of the first things that popped into my mind, you know, so I hadn't taken delivery of my truck yet, but they announced this, and my thought is like, what if okay, rewind, you see the announcement for the F-150 Lightning, all-electric pickup truck, you go, well, I'm not going to reserve one because the charging infrastructure, you know, it's not in a good spot. And then fast forward, they announced this right before you take delivery of your truck or just after you take delivery of your truck. I almost feel bad for those people that didn't adopt early or didn't get that place in line because nobody would have guessed that Tesla was going to start opening up. And
I actually got an email from Ford Model E saying, "Hey, tune into Twitter tonight," and I'm like, "Okay." I was like, "What do you mean tune in?" All right. Saw it pop up immediately when I logged in, and I was like blown away. First of all, the two CEOs on Twitter talking to each other was crazy enough for me.
And then Sergio pops up.
You know, I was very happy that Sergio got talked to, and I was very impressed with what he asked because that was a question on my mind. I don't think I would have had the gusto to go up to the CEO and go, "Hey, let me call this out real quick."
Right.
So props to him all day. That was a good point in the conversation, honestly.
Yeah. Well, and so speaking about the value of our trucks, you know, after the moment that gets announced, there are two camps. And that's something I've found with EVs across the board. I thought EVs was one big happy family of like, we all see the world the same way because we all drive EVs. And it is just not the case.
It's not.
We all disagree on everything. What's the better brand? What's the better home charger? What's the better way to charge? What's the better size
of battery? That's of the most flack I get from the local EV club up here is your battery, you know, it's a waste of resources. And I'm like, okay, yes and no, because I'm towing a 36-foot camper. Like that's 100% like exactly what I need for what I use it for. It's not like I don't use that battery, you know, road tripping or taking the camper, or, you know what I mean? It's not like I'm just tapping like the first like 100 miles of the battery and that's it. You know, on a daily basis, I could drive up to 60 miles. So it's definitely necessary for me.
Yeah. So speaking of the value of the trucks, the moment it gets announced that they're going to switch in 2025 to manufacturing trucks with this new port, and we're going to get adapters. P.S. Side note: are we paying for the adapters? Has it been announced if they're just mailing it to us for free? That's still up in the air, I think, right?
Official that they're mailing it to us. At least I haven't seen a Ford letterhead saying, "Hey, you're getting one for free."
Yeah.
But I know he was on Good Morning America saying Jim Farley is who I'm referring to. So is it maybe you know, that's to come, obviously, but
yeah, we had a Twitter back and forth of like, what would you pay? And which is an interesting question because it's like, what would you pay to have access to 10,000 more or 12,000 more chargers?
Yeah.
You know,
and having more reliability. That's it for me. Is when I hear I have access to a supercharger from Tesla, I know that's going to be reliable. You know what I mean? Tesla's been, obviously, they were the pioneers in the entire electric vehicle popularity to begin with. I actually considered going to a Tesla before my last gas pickup truck. And I was like, I can't lose the truck part. And then this got announced shortly after. And I was like, I'm in. Like, that's exactly what I needed, was electric and still a pickup truck. So, but yeah, that's it for me, is the reliability is huge. Listen, if the adapter came out and was $400, I wouldn't be happy, but I would
pay it.
Right, exactly. To me, that would just be worth it for what we use the truck for.
Yeah. So, but the other camp, so clearly we're in the camp of this is incredible for us as Lightning owners. The other camp, though, is saying, um, now immediately our vehicles become antiquated because once the new ones come out, people are going to be on cars.com looking at, by then a wider variety of electric pickups.
Yeah.
And they're going to, do you think that's a point where people are going to check the box to say, just show me the ones that already have the NACS? Like, do you think the adapter is a...
Yeah, okay. Absolutely. I'm sure that'll be a filter on used cars. I can't imagine it wouldn't be. But at the same time, I don't have any plans on selling this anytime soon. Right. My goal with this is keep it for 10 years for myself, and then turn it over to my son when he's old enough to drive, which is roughly 10 years.
Yeah.
But so that actually helps me because I tell him he's very young, he's a toddler still. So I'm like, hey, don't scratch my truck because this is your truck. Like, don't mess it up. So, that's my, we'll get that 10 years out of the battery, and then you'll start to see degradation on the battery.
Yeah.
But I'm not worried about it because it's going to be his daily driver to high school. You know what I mean?
Right.
He's not going to be going across country with it.
Right.
So.
As long as he doesn't go to high school 300 miles away, I think he'll be okay.
We're not that rural up here in New York, I promise.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned the reliability of Electrify America, which is obviously a hot topic amongst not only Lightning owners, but any EV owner that doesn't drive a Tesla.
Yes.
And we also were talking earlier before we started the stream about kind of the geography of being an EV owner. Mm-hmm. And so I'm in the Midwest, I'm in Cincinnati. And so for the 18 months that I had reserved the Lightning but hadn't taken delivery, all I saw was horror stories about how bad the network is, which, you can't argue with what you see online about people. And people now are like cutting the cables. That's a separate topic.
I saw that. That was happening, though, way early before even I got my truck.
Yeah.
I saw there was a bunch of them in California that got vandalized. And it's...
People need new hobbies, I think. But what I was getting at is, I think weirdly, because the Midwest is not a hotbed for electric vehicles, the chargers, even though they're a little sparse in this geographic region, they also get used maybe less, and that's why I've never been stranded. Like, I'm wondering, like, when I drove to Cary, so I drove through West Virginia, I drove through North Carolina.
With no chargers in West Virginia.
Don't get me started on West Virginia. I one of my YouTube video ideas, which I'll never fully execute, is to drive there and talk to politicians and be like, somebody talk me through why. It can't be a coincidence.
Yeah.
Like, why is there not a single Electrify America charger in the entire state?
Was it Wyoming that was trying to make electric vehicles illegal on the roads?
Yeah, that too. Luckily, I'm not planning any road trips through West Virginia in the coming years. But so would you agree or disagree, like, depending on your region, do you see hotbeds of chargers that are always in bad shape? Like, I feel like, okay.
Oh, yeah. We have them pretty, I don't want to say pretty frequent, but they're close enough. Okay. I have one that's right down the road from me. Mm-hmm. And skipping from there is about an hour and a half drive south in Newburgh, New York. I haven't had great luck with some of the chargers. There's 4 stalls. Actually, just in fact, today I went out to Massachusetts to drop my camper off for some repairs. Mm-hmm. And on the way there, I stopped at Chicopee, Mass. Now, this charger, since I bought my truck, has never, ever had any issues. Mm-hmm. There was a small downtime. They were replacing the chargers. They were upgrading them. But never like one down or crowded or anything like that. I've always been able to just jump right in and charge. Mm-hmm. I got there today, and one of them was out, and it was the one that I needed to use to pull in without taking the camper off because I didn't want to, I disconnect the camper. It takes about 20 minutes. So I didn't want to go halfway across the parking lot, drop it off, come back into a spot and use it. So I ended up having to do that for the first time. But, it's, as these become more popular, as more EVs become more popular, you're going to see, people dropping handles, just having no care for what they're using. Like early adopters, like when I first got my truck, anytime I'd find a charger with a handle on the ground or the cables just in a giant knot on the ground, I'd get up and clean it up.
Yeah.
Because why crap where you eat? You know what I mean? Like I could have to use that someday if somebody doesn't have the respect for it. Then why are you doing that? But I've run into slow charging. I've run into massive lines down south in the south end of New York, to the point where I had to go to Connecticut to actually get a charge to get home.
Yeah.
And I had somewhere to be, and I didn't make it in time because those chargers were so slow. So
Yeah.
I know the infrastructure is not there from
Right.
firsthand experience, and
Right.
from seeing everyone else's experiences on Twitter and rate my charges, it definitely doing justice into bringing that out into the light. And that was very needed at the time they started that.
So have you been rating your charges as you go?
I've been trying to do as many as I can.
Yeah.
I got again my little one. So every time I'm on a road trip, I'm trying to corral him into where I need him to go. And by the time we're done, I'm already in the driver's seat, and I'm not using my phone while I'm blue cruising.
Right. Well, so just to give a shout out to anyone watching who may not be familiar with Rate Your Charge, it's a Twitter handle run by another EV YouTuber. And the goal is to just compile anecdotal data about the charging infrastructure in the United States, just to kind of hone in on the trends of, is Electrify America really the worst, or is Tesla really the best, and so on and so forth. And I learn a lot from them, but also it's just fun. What else are you going to do while you're charging? You're stuck there for maybe 30 minutes. So whip out the cell phone and just tell people about your experience, and they give it a score. So I love it. I've only done a few road trips so far, but I try to rate my charges. I try to be an ambassador to others. Rate your charge, and it's really cool the amount of people that are tweeting at it now. I feel like it's actual data that you can.
It's real user data. So that's what that's my big thing on social media. That's the reason I share what I do. That's the reason I share my experiences with my truck, with the chargers, everything, because it's real world data versus something you can read on a spreadsheet or what you hear from the news media. There's always a bias in a lot of that stuff. Whereas, real world data from users isn't always biased. I mean, it's going to be biased in that they like what they're doing to the point where they're sharing it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, I've had negative experiences. I've shared them. I haven't hidden any of them. And it's that's gold to a future consumer. That's what you want to find. You don't want to find these guys on YouTube that are doing clickbait and stuff like that. You want to find real people like you and I sitting right here in front of our trucks going, this is what I've done with it.
Yeah.
And that's a huge piece of getting this to be adopted in this country.
Well, speaking of adoption, you said something earlier that really jumped out at me. So, like, as people transition to EVs, the turnover time hopefully gets shorter. So, like, I waited 18 months. You waited a good few months from when they launched to when they and so as that time window shrinks of, like, you reserve your EV till you take delivery, that's less time for that person to educate themselves on charging etiquette, which is this weird subgenre of EVs that is there's so many YouTube videos, there's so many nuances to how to charge your EV that luckily I had time to educate myself on, but there's a lot of faux pas that you could commit at your local charger. So let's start with, like, have you ever committed a charging sin that you're willing to share for the public?
No, I don't think I have. That year and a half of research between Tom Malogny, Kyle Connor, all those guys,
they're putting in the work for us.
It was EV News Daily, I think is what it's called. I would listen to their podcast. They would discuss all this stuff. Obviously I'm late to the electric vehicle game. There was many other smaller cars that had started this long before I have. So I don't want to go into this being the disrespectful truck owner that, I'm, classic American has to have a big truck, So I went out of my way to learn anything and everything I could about every bit of this truck. So, and again, the crapping where you eat thing, like I'm going to take care of what I rely on to make sure it's still here in the future. And I would hope that other users do that too. But, I've seen, the charging handles on the ground, the charging
Mhm.
handles absolutely shattered and not working, and I've reported them to Electrify America so they could
Mhm.
fix them. But like,
Yeah.
I don't, I saw a lady at my local Walmart, actually, the charger nearby, unplug another lady that was charging her car and plug hers in, and I was like, I don't
Yeah.
want to, I want to leave. Like, I don't want to be here right now because this is going to be bad
It's
when
gonna
this lady comes
yeah.
out. Like, this is going to be all at war.
Did you see any numbers? Was one at 100 and that's
It
no?
was too
Okay.
far away.
Yeah.
I wasn't able to see, but like, she
Uh,
just pulled up on the other side and completely disconnected her, and I was like, oh, that's
yeah.
going to be really bad when they come out.
Yeah.
You want to be respectful to the other early adopters. There's a
Mhm.
reason we're all doing this. We're all
Right.
like-minded people that want to
Right.
be on the forefront of changing transportation. So like,
Yeah. Wow, that was poetic. I've never said anything that well thought out. Okay.
I don't want to, I want to treat my neighbor the same way I would treat my neighbor sitting right behind me here. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, I'm not gonna be rude
Right.
and then treat everything poorly. I wish other people would have that mentality, but it's humanity. You're not going to have that.
Well, the reality, as we talked about the NACS transition, is that the tangled web of unwritten charging law
Yeah.
is only going to get more complicated starting next year when these adapters start arriving in our hands, because now you're merging two EV
Yes.
communities that have never had to interact at a charging station unless you've got your Tesla people using their adapters at
I
EA.
actually have the Magic Dock up here, about 40 minutes away from me.
One of the 12, right?
Yes. Yes.
Lucky.
The night it opened, I drove there at 8:30 at night. I had no idea it was open until I found it.
Of course.
I got out. I was in bed, ready to go to sleep, and my wife's like, "Where are you going?" I was like, I'm gonna go try a charger." She's like, "You are bizarre." I was like, "Yep, I know."
Yeah.
So I drove 40 minutes north, and there was a guy sitting there with his Tesla, and I complimented him on his wheels, and he kind of gave me this snarky, like, "Yeah, it comes with the car." Like, I didn't know they come with white wheels. I've never seen the rims on a Tesla that were white, other than like custom ones. So I was like, "Oh, those are really nice." And he like gave me this like confused attitude, and then, like, I realized that like he didn't like that I was there. Like, he rolled his window up immediately, didn't want to continue to talk.
You
Um,
extended the olive branch, and he
yeah, exactly. It completely put his window up, and I was like, this is
okay,
gonna. And then
off to
when
a bad start.
they announced that, I was like, this is gonna cause some social clash. I mean,
Yeah, there'll
the,
be
the
growing pains.
Tesla owners have always been exclusive to their chargers, so
Yeah,
I think they kind of take possession of that, where
yeah,
this is my supercharger. What are you
yeah,
doing here?
yeah,
I think there's going to be a learning curve for that, but I don't think
yeah,
it'll be terrible. I would hope, as long as we're all
yeah.
respectful.
Right.
Pulling up to a Tesla station and leaving the thing on the ground is a
Yeah,
way to get people to hate you. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah, and yeah, it's going to be interesting. I would say they. It's. I'm not a Tesla owner, but it's something they take pride in. Is that
Absolutely.
supercharger
Yeah.
network? And um, again, I don't own one, so I won't speak for them. But I could easily understand if they have strong feelings
Yeah.
about this change. Because I mean, what if we have our Lightnings, and they said, here's a perk. There's these 500 chargers that only you get to use. I'd be
Mhm.
like, great. And then a year later, they say, actually, no, we're going to open them up. It's, of course, we would be disappointed. That's only
Yeah.
natural.
Yeah, I mean, not only that, but that was the selling point of Tesla. It
Yep.
wasn't that their cars were so superior in technology advanced for me. It was those chargers. Those chargers are, at first, when they first came out, they were included. They were free.
Right. Right.
So like that free gas. From an ICE driver standpoint, it
Yeah.
was huge to hear. But
Mhm.
again, I didn't want to get rid of the pickup truck.
Right.
So
So speaking of pickup truck, this was one of my grab bag of just questions to get to know you. Let's start with what's one feature that your truck does not have that you wish it did?
ooh,
And that question used to have no weight whatsoever, but now we're seeing other EV trucks. Obviously, Rivian's been around, but
yeah,
like all the YouTube videos of the Chevy Silverado just got uploaded
yes,
yesterday.
yep.
So, like, did you see anything on any of those where you go, "Boy, I wish that was on my Lightning"?
Not that I wish it was on my Lightning. I think the way they did this truck was perfect.
Mm-hmm.
I don't mean to sound like a fanboy. Completely perfect. I think they mastered bringing an ICE truck driver into the electric vehicle world.
Yeah.
And not having to change what I do with my truck.
Yeah.
I'm a little jealous of the airbags on the Rivian. I think that would have been cool,
Mm-hmm.
but the independent rear suspension on this thing at the same time with a trailer is
Mm-hmm.
amazing. It feels like you're floating on, in a a luxury vehicle.
Yeah.
Do I wish it was faster? Absolutely not. 0 to 60 in 4 seconds was way too fast. It's a race car hidden in a pickup truck. I don't need that.
Yeah.
But I use it frequently.
Yeah. Right.
The storage space in the front, the amount of outlets, I can power my house on this thing. There's so many features that so far exceeded what I was expecting out of the truck when they first announced it. I really can't. I wouldn't be able to add something to this.
Okay.
That being said, the Silverado, I was very excited to see the specs on that the other day.
Mm-hmm.
The way they built their Ultium batteries is impressive. I think that's an amazing technology, but I don't think there's. I've had the extended range on this, and I think that's perfect.
Right.
I don't. The 400-mile range, it's not all about range. I think getting some customers in there is going to be about range, but I can't. That costs money to the customer. You're going to pay for that extra.
Yeah. So when I thought of that question, that was way back when you and I, or maybe just I, were on the Pro train. We were waiting to have the opportunity to order the Pro.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it was the interior work surface, which I'm sure you have now been like, oh my God, I can't live without it.
Yeah.
I am right there with you.
Yep.
But why they didn't put that in the work truck, I don't know. I mean, 4-wheel steering on the Silverado is cool.
Yeah.
But again, it's another reason you and I make perfect co-hosts is because it sounds like you tow a lot.
I do.
This is my first pickup, so I'm not experienced with
towing.
Okay. I don't know how to do it. It intimidates me. I'm sure there will come a day where I need to do it.
Listen, I'll fly out to Ohio. We'll go through it. We'll do a crash course. No problem.
Yeah. And that'll be a good dry run for when your son turns 16.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Yeah, you'll get to iron out the kinks. But where was I going with that? Yeah, the Silverado. So I meant to interject as we were talking about that. Do you have a Silverado EV reservation?
I don't. Nope.
Okay, so you're firmly right because you plan on keeping this one for 10 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was a Chevy customer before I was a Ford customer, and I don't think I'll ever go back.
Yeah.
Not saying that their products now are terrible, but just I was very impressed with how Ford made their trucks comparatively, because I was in a Chevy pickup truck before that. I was in a Chevy 1500.
Mm-hmm.
So I became a prideful owner of a Ford, and I don't think I'll ever leave the Ford family at this point.
Yeah, I will divulge that I do have a reservation for a Silverado EV, but those reservations happened back when both of these trucks were pure fantasy. I mean, and the price point of $40,000 seemed like a reality
very
back then. But now we've seen that they're both kind of fantasy at this point.
Yep.
But also pivoting, since we're talking about EV truck features, lots of videos this week of the Cybertruck. Which as Lightning owners, we just naturally have to have opinions on the Cybertruck. I know how I feel about it, but what are your thoughts? Seeing the videos?
I had a reservation.
Okay.
I did have a reservation on day one when they announced it.
Mm-hmm.
I forced myself to do that, looking past the crazy I wouldn't say crazy, futuristic features, styling of the truck. Yeah. My coworkers, when I made the reservation, were giving me a whole bunch of flack. Dude, that doesn't even look like a normal truck. What is that? I was trying to just, the technology of this is going to make up for the crazy, styling that people don't normally see on the road at this point. Mm-hmm. This was, God, when did that first open? 2018.
I want to say 2019 is when they announced it, maybe.
So I had that, and then I did the Lightning reservation and canceled Tesla right out, because they had already postponed it, I think twice by the time this was announced. So I was like, all right, listen, that I'm going to stick with what I already have because I had a Ford pickup at the time. Stick with what I have, and then I'm completely happy that I did, because I would still be waiting for a truck that isn't on the road. So
right, yeah, I have intentionally not spoken a lot about the Cybertruck, and here's why. Obviously, I didn't want to have an opinion before I took delivery of the Lightning, because what do I know about electric trucks if I didn't own one? But also, I have this deep-seated fear that it's going to be incredible, and I would hate to be the person with 1,200 tweets just ragging on the Cybertruck, only to have it come out and then have it maybe be widely adopted or incredible or amazing, which anyways, yeah, so that's why I don't talk a lot about the Cybertruck. I just know I love my truck. I do think, you have those seminal moments of, like, I remember the first time I saw a Lightning on the road here in Cincinnati. After just seeing them on YouTube for hours and hours and hours. And I'm sure it'll be the same if a Cybertruck ever makes it to my neck of the woods. But actually, you probably didn't have that moment because you were the first Lightning in your area, right?
I didn't have a Lightning moment. No, I had a Rivian moment, actually. About a month before I got mine, I saw the headlights coming up behind me, and I went to, I was on the highway. I'm going 65 miles an hour. This guy's coming up behind me, and I see the headlights. I dropped to 30 miles an hour on the highway. I was so excited to see it.
I almost ran into the first one I saw too because I was so distracted.
Yeah, so he's in the middle lane. I got out over to the right. I got out of the way and dropped right down. And he finally caught up, and I pulled up. Now, my plate at the time is the same license plate I have now. I have a vanity plate, and this is Lightning. But I had it on a gas pickup truck at the time.
Yeah.
So I waved at him, and I think once he got in front of me and saw my plate, he realized, and he came back. He dropped back next to me and gave me another thumbs up. So it was really cool to see. But I did have a electric pickup truck fanboy moment, but it wasn't the Lightning, unfortunately. But I won't lie, every time I drive past one, I wave, I flash my high beams, I roll the window down, try to get their attention. Not only just to say hi, but sometimes I've actually run into them at Chargers and stuff, and I'll actually try to recruit them for the Lightning Club that I started.
Rivian owners?
No, I'm sorry. The other Lightning owners.
Okay, gotcha.
Rivian has their own club as well.
Right.
We started a Lightning Club up here in the Northeast, and I've been trying. Chargers are the greatest place to find people and actually be able to corner them and go, "Hey, listen to my spiel."
Well, and circling back to Chargers, I have also found that it is one of it's just so social for some reason, in a good way.
Yes.
If you are antisocial and you drive an EV, charging must be a terrible experience for you, because I'm always
like a fish in a fishbowl because everyone's looking in your windows trying to get your attention.
Well, and I'm sitting there charging, but if there's a Mach-E next to me, people are just so open, because I'll say, how do you like it? But what kind of range do you get? Which is probably so annoying. If they've had that for 2 years, they're tired of meeting new people. I'm sure of it. But it's still fresh for me. And so I love, if someone's window is down, I'll just be like, I'll strike up a conversation, which my wife hates. But
mine too.
But it's weird because at a gas station, I never was like, hey, how's your day?
Oh, absolutely not.
How do you like your, whatever they're driving?
You don't talk to anybody at the gas station at all.
Yeah, I wonder what's different about our experience that we do that.
We know we're like-minded people on the front end of changing transportation. I find myself giving people more compliments on their vehicles since I bought mine. I actually made business cards that say, I admire your ride, awesome ride, have a great day. And then on the other side has my Twitter QR code.
Oh, that's such a good
idea.
idea.
On Lightning, they can learn about the Lightning Club from my Twitter feed.
Yes. Okay, well, transitioning very smoothly right into one of the things we wanted to be sure to talk about today, which is the Lightning Clubs of America. Is that the right title?
That is the right title.
Okay. So before we went live, I was grilling you about what club I even should be part of based on my geographic location. So right now, how many chapters do you have live of the Lightning Club of America?
We've got 6 chapters. We're actually it's called Lightning Clubs of America. My intent was not to go international, but it ended up becoming international. We actually had our Toronto club start last week.
Yeah.
They're still part of North America, so it still counts. Still America.
Right. Did they change their badge to say Toronto Lightning Club of North America?
No, it says actually of Canada. We changed it for them.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, we put some Canadian flags in the logo and stuff. It was, I'm not going to force them into our American flag, logo and everything like that. So,
typical American.
But I started the Northeast Lightning Club last fall with a bunch of other guys out in Massachusetts. They have become my admin team, and we have 175 members of the Northeast Club.
Whoa.
About a month ago, we just happened to be talking to other owners on Twitter. Hey, I really wish we had a club out there, and it sparked an idea in my head to go make this a countrywide thing, and give these local owners the admin rights to their clubs so they could make all these events, and I'd just help them out with creating email lists and calendar events. And we've grown exponentially in the past month. I've only had it for a month and a half. I made the website ago, so it's spun into this giant network of owners that we all want to get together. We all want to share our stories, not only with the public but with each other,
right?
And do some absolutely crazy events. We've had some really cool things come out of the Northeast Club, and already seeing some great stuff on the other ones. So,
like I just saw, so I'll admit I have not attended an event yet, but I saw on Twitter that Chris, part of the Bay Area Lightning Club of America, they had one in front of like an aircraft carrier or something. I mean, it looked...
Ford themselves came out. They brought the Mach-E 1400, which is awesome.
Yeah.
I don't think I'd fit in it. I'm 6'8". I don't think I'd fit in that thing at all, but I really would love a trip in that.
Yeah.
So that was their first event out in the Bay Area Club.
Yeah.
And those guys have been killing it out there. Car meetups and cars and coffee out in California is a very common thing.
Yeah.
It happens here too in New York, but it's more for an ICE vehicle. So, I know the Mach-E clubs. There are Mach-E clubs somewhere. I don't think there's one in the Northeast yet that I know of that I've seen. But why not do the same thing the other car clubs? The Mustang clubs, stuff like that. I took my truck to a bunch of car shows last summer just to show it off, and people be walking by like, how's the motor? That was my favorite part of that whole thing, was that now I've got you in. Now you get to hear my whole thing.
Yeah.
And that was kind of where it started. This lady was sitting next to me with her Mustang, and she's got her sportsman jacket from Mustang, and I'm like, why not have the same club? So it spun into that, and we love it.
Well, thank goodness that you got the ball rolling with that, because so many of us, as we were talking about earlier in the podcast, need that outlet. Like you may be the only Lightning in your area, or you may be the only, and so it's a good excuse one weekend to drive to your event meetup and finally have this experience that we're having right now, but have it in person and see what upgrades they've done, and maybe go, oh, maybe I should have gone with the Lariat, or it's like you can't. Those are such unique
my favorite
things.
thing is what crazy stuff have you done with the truck? This isn't just a normal pickup truck. This is you can power 9.6 kilowatts off the thing. So what have you put in the back? What have you plugged in? I could run my camper off mine. I've done a front retreat with mine. What else? I powered an airplane with mine. Just so many. My lights on? My lights are on. Just so many things that it's so versatile that I'd like to hear other stories from other owners.
Right.
A lot of people in our club do want to just do the online thing. Some people aren't into road tripping for whatever reason, which is fine. But it's our main goal is to meet. Our main goal is to be in person, especially after COVID, where you can't talk to anybody, can't see anybody face to face. Let's get back on track with society and make some real friends,
Yeah, I think you're doing a service by establishing that community, that sense of community for those people. Speaking of owners chiming in, I completely forgot that there's a live chat happening on this stream right now. Do you have it pulled up?
I do. Yeah.
Okay.
Looks like Dale's been all over us the whole time.
Dale's all over us, and I want to give a shout out to Chris who tuned in also. If you're still here,
Yes.
Chris, Chris, tell us what you're like. Is there a nearby Lightning Club of America near you? It would be awkward if he was in your Northeast one, and I didn't know that.
That would be funny.
But yeah, Chris, if you're still with us, answer in the chat there. Okay, so speaking of crazy things we've done with the truck, I have only had mine for a month. The craziest thing I've done is I put some Unistrut in the bed here.
I saw that. Yes,
which is relatively tame. But you were telling me before we went live about I could not wrap my head around what you're saying, so I'm glad you have to tell me again. It involves an airplane and the Northeast Lightning Club.
Yes. Back in November, one of our members was contacted by Lehigh College in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
They were doing an all-electric flyover for a sporting event, which was going to set a world record for the first electric flight over a sporting event. I think he ended up getting 2 world records out of the whole deal, but they needed a way to charge the plane at the airports they were stopping at because it only had a limited amount of range. Obviously, the heavier the battery, the less distance the plane will go. It's not good for a plane to have a huge, heavy battery in it.
Right.
So they had to stop 6 times on the way from getting the plane was owned by somebody in Connecticut, and they had to fly it across down to Pennsylvania and then back to return it to them.
Yeah.
So he reached out to us. We had just gotten our trucks not even 6 months ago, maybe 4 or 5 months ago.
Yeah.
So they asked Ford for a bunch of Lightnings to do this, and they weren't able to. Obviously, they weren't able to get them out because they were still trying to struggle to get them to market,
right?
To their own, to the reservists. So he somehow got in contact with our VP of the Northeast Club, Pete Lamarine. And he organized the entire thing. He went down and actually powered an entire cookout off the back of his truck at the football game.
Yeah.
And we had 6 trucks, 2 trucks per team, and we would leapfrog each other and make it all the way to the end of the convoy. I want to say it was a 300-400 mile road trip.
Yeah.
And it was awesome. Like pulling onto Newark Airport with a truck.
Yeah.
Plugging in we had they called it the football. It was a special charger that would go from the 30 amp in the back of our trucks to the plane, which is a proprietary. It wasn't like a J1772 that we use. So we had the football in one truck. You'd complete your battery, charge the plane up for an hour. They'd take off. You'd switch the football to the other truck. You go charge, and you'll meet up in the next airport. So it was a great logistical nightmare. It was awesome.
Yeah.
It was the event of a lifetime for me. Like that was the coolest thing.
Yeah.
Chasing these guys around. And that's when the charging infrastructure absolutely failed for me. And I got left. I fell right off the return trip.
Oh no. But the plane had already successfully or it was in its, oh my gosh.
It was it was stop number 2. It was mid stop, and I got stranded actually at Newark where I ended up getting stuck because there was a line. Once I got through the line, the charger wouldn't work. It was an absolute nightmare.
Yeah.
So we ended up, because we started the Northeast Lightning Club a month before, we ended up calling in 2 other trucks from, I think they're both from Massachusetts, and they ended up backfilling me, and we completed the mission, no problem at all.
Wow.
But because we had that network already built of the Lightning Club, this whole thing was successful. They would have been, 2 trucks short by the time they ended. So
it sounds like one of those ideas that somebody pitches, and just the first 5 minutes of realizing how many pieces have to come together to make that a success, it's a miracle the idea made it out of the room.
If you want to look it up, Remy Octay is the pilot. Okay. This was his complete brainchild. There's actually a documentary on it that they have. They haven't released it publicly yet because it's going to a bunch of film festivals this summer, which is really cool. And I hope he gets some awards out of it because the amount of work and the amount of hoops he had to jump through for the FAA, for the charging, for all that, and work with the school. props to him. He got that all done. That was a feat in and of itself. So.
Well, and how rewarding for you guys as a club to be able to come together and help somebody achieve a dream. I mean, maybe that's an overstatement, but help them achieve this thing.
That's exactly what it was. It was a dream of his to do, and he literally put the pen to the paper and made it happen. So,
wow.
For us to be asked to be a part of that was huge for me.
Yeah.
Just because how often do you get to charge a plane on a tarmac? That was the cool thing for me.
Well, speaking of how often do you get asked to do things, I'm going to transition right in. I'm starting to sound bitter already because the jealousy is just flowing out of me here. Somehow you ended up in Norway.
I did.
So I'm in the wrong Twitter circles, I think. Like I need to be following different people or something because somehow Ford took you to Norway to be an ambassador for the Lightning.
They did.
So, but then again, you were one of the earliest people to get your hands on one. So who knew it better as a customer than you at that point?
Right. And that's what they wanted me to bring to Norway. It wasn't me specifically. It was my story. It was my use case of my truck.
Yep.
I went over and started explaining. They brought me up on stage with the Norwegian, I think he's the CEO, Perger. And we were up on stage talking about what I do with my truck.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh yeah, I towed my 36-foot camper, and immediately after it came out of my mouth, I realized we're talking meters over here. Like, you can't be American. Like, you definitely have to change that. So I'm like, I froze, and I was like, what's that in meters?
What's that, about 12? About 12 meters?
Completely froze. Math wasn't happening. It was just off.
Yeah.
So I explained, I got a 12-meter camper, and this room is full of reporters from the entire country.
Yeah.
And they all were like, whoa. Like,
yeah.
I'm like, yeah, I know it's huge. I get it, but it's America.
Then again, I'm a tall guy, so I need a big camper.
That was the reason we bought that, because my height of the shower, I couldn't stand in any shower except for that big one. So we went all the way. So Ford brought me out there to bring my story and tell them my use case and explain how I use my Lightning. They also brought my good friend now, Jace Miller, Kraft Miller, excuse me.
Yeah.
His use case is work. He uses his 2 trucks, 2 Lightnings, for his roofing business. So they wanted us to highlight those for the Norwegian customers to show what the abilities of the truck are.
Yeah.
I am still in shock that I was picked to do that. It was an amazing opportunity to see that country, their infrastructure. Their Ford team at Norway is absolutely the most friendly people you'll ever meet. In their dealership model is so much better than ours in regards to they have so many things under one roof. It's just not selling cars there. They have aftermarket parts, restaurants. They call them tire hotels. When they switch to their winter tires, they keep their summer tires there for the winter, and then they switch back. So just so many things that you would never think of.
It's a hotel just for tires.
Just for tires. The whole section of the building. It was really cool to get in on the inside of the dealerships and learn that stuff from them.
Yeah.
And we have room for improvement here in America, but at the same time, we have things that we do really good here. So that Norwegian trip was a once in a lifetime moment for me, and I don't there's no way I can repay that back. Jason and I were on the flight out, and both of us were, why me? It didn't make sense to us, and it still doesn't make sense to me. Why me? But at the same time, I haven't shut up about this truck in 2-3 years that we've known about it. So I kind of get, the reason why. This thing's amazing for me. So.
Right. That's part of why they picked you, I guess. They knew. Yeah. They were like, just put him in front of an audience. He will expound all of the amazing things about this vehicle for us.
Yeah. My coworkers have been victim of that for a good couple of years now.
Well, speaking of victims of EVs, my wife actually said, you have to start a podcast because I'm tired of hearing about all. She does not care about EVs. She's like, I don't care about the charging. I don't care about the trunk. I don't care about the front. She said, find somebody else to talk to about this. You need an outlet. So here we are. In the Lightning Strike Zone podcast.
I've worn mine down, and she just told my friend the other day, I'll probably end up getting a Mach-E soon. And I was like, Really? Like you're finally going to sell your car? Like she loves her Edge. She's never wanted to get rid of it.
Yeah.
She told him the other day, and I was like, I'm sorry, what did you just say?
Yeah.
Did I just hear you want to go EV? I was like, is that what I heard?
Let's just strike while the iron's hot. The dealership's only a few miles away. Let's just go see what they've got.
I know a guy.
Right. Oh my gosh, that's awesome. Yeah, my wife drives a Kia Soul, and I have a feeling we're gonna be a mixed household for the time being. But it's kind of nice to have a gas fallback. We haven't used it yet. We're actually going on a road trip here next week, and that'll be the first time that we're both road tripping the vehicle. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little nervous because if I did my road trip last week, and if something goes wrong, it's just me. I'm like, I don't care. I signed up for this.
Right.
If something goes wrong next week with her in the car,
you get the pressure.
She's gonna be like, you were all excited about this truck, and now it's just costing us time, So I'm a little nervous. If you have any tips for road tripping with a family,
absolutely. We've put 25,000 miles on ours already in a year and 1 month.
Okay.
Trust the truck.
Okay.
My first road trip out, I went out to Lee, Massachusetts, and I freaked out on the way home. We were in low battery state. I didn't think I was going to make it.
Yep.
Because I picked the charger myself. I didn't let the truck pick. And I was trying to override it. And completely screwed it up. So from there on out, I just have trusted the truck's navigation. The software that Ford is always constantly updating keeps getting better. I know there's an update coming soon for everyone. I don't have a date, but I know that the software I'm part of the beta program, so I get the software early. And
Fancy.
The new I didn't know how amazing this was going to be. Like I signed up for it, didn't realize how cool this was. The software that they have now for the range estimator, when you put into the navigation, I'm going to go to this destination, and this is the percentage of highway usage. It lowers your range on the truck because it knows it's not as efficient on the highway, and it actually is dead on.
Wow.
It's really cool to see. Like, the first day I had it, truck says 323 miles. I can go, I'm like, all right, cool, great. Put in my destination. I watched it drop, and I was like, that's different.
Yeah.
I was like, there's something wrong with my truck. Like, did I lose a phase? Turns out that's part of the new software, and it's really, really accurate.
Wow.
I'm glad they did that because now I know what my capabilities are. I'm not just guessing. And the truck is so much more accurate with its charging percentages that are needed. So,
well, okay. So I'm going to give you the opportunity to share your wisdom, not only with me, but with everybody watching. So I'm going to tell you how I planned my Cary, North Carolina trip and how I planned my trip next week. And then once I'm done, I would love for you to tell me all 10 things I'm doing wrong. Okay?
Sure.
I sit down and I open 2 tabs on my computer, Google Maps, Electrify America.
Okay.
Maybe if I'm feeling spicy, I'll do a 3rd tab for like Plug Share or a better route planner.
Yeah, baby.
Okay. I look at my internal combustion route from Google Maps. That's what I do. And I look at the major cities I hit along the way. Then I hop over to Electrify America and I look at how far away the first major city is. If it's less than 200 miles, and I see if they have an Electrify America station. That's my first stop. Okay. And I do that all the way down because I tried a better route planner and it kept trying to get me to drive like really close to 240, sometimes further than 240. I'm like, I told you the truck can only go 240. Right. So that's what I do. I jump back and forth between Google Maps, Electrify America. I print out a paper Google Maps with every stop.
Really?
And I highlight it and I write on the paper, like, here's how many miles between each stop. Yep. And then when the day comes for the trip, I just punch in one destination at a time. So that's what I do. Because the day I got the truck, I played around with the in-truck trip planner.
Yep.
And I love Ford. I love the truck. I did not find the trip planner super beginner friendly. So I haven't used it since I took delivery.
On the screen, right? On the in dash, yeah.
Yeah.
Have you done the trip planner in the app?
I've not. But does it communicate with? Okay, so I can do the planning.
So it saves up to 10 trips into your truck. So you'll put the whole trip in. Okay. Your home address is starting, and then you'll put in, or wherever you're starting. and you'll put in your destination. It'll automatically do the chargers.
Okay.
If you want to replace one for some reason, you can just click on it, click replace, and pick whatever charger out of the list, and it'll replace it and change your trip. At the end, you're going to hit save, and it says sending to vehicle.
Nice.
You get in, you go down to the bottom of, so you get that whole panel on the side there. You know, you can home, work, scroll down to the bottom, you go to my trips, and then forward past trips.
Okay.
You click that, and you'll have 10 of them. Well, you know, you can have up to 10 of them in there, and it automatically loads the whole thing into the truck. And then the truck takes that trip, and then takes your range estimator that's now updated, and it'll actually make a different decision with the charger than the app, which is a little cumbersome.
Yeah.
Like you expect to stop somewhere, and then halfway through your trip, it's like, oh, you're pulling off here. I'm like, no, I'm not. Just happened to me about a week ago.
Okay.
But that's I've used that since day one. I tried Apple Maps. You know, it doesn't.
So on the talk to the battery,
on the dashboard, it'll show you your range that's left, and then how many miles to your destination or to your charger, right on your dashboard, on your Blue Cruise screen or whatever you got on the front.
Yeah.
So that I really love, because hours into driving, I'm literally doing math while I'm driving all the time, because I'm trying to figure out what we'll end up with at the end.
Yes, me too.
Versus the percentage that the middle screen will show you. Apple Maps doesn't do that. Apple Maps only shows the truck where to turn. It doesn't talk to the battery at all.
Exactly.
Google Maps doesn't do either of those. Google Maps doesn't have the directions come up on the middle screen there, or on the driver's screen.
It does.
Oh, on Android it does?
On Google, on Android Auto, it will.
Apple doesn't let it.
Interesting.
I didn't know that. You know, that's why I don't use Google Maps that often.
Right.
And like I said, Apple Maps, it just doesn't talk to the truck the way the truck software does.
Right.
I definitely have stuck to that sense because of my first road trip and almost getting stranded in the middle of Mass.
Well, so Sergio also sounds on Twitter like he's a big fan of the built-in trip planner.
Yeah.
And so, that's why I was surprised. Like, I was just too nervous to trust. But like you see, I just used that word. I was too nervous to trust the truck.
Yeah.
But I mean, what knows better how far it can go, me or the truck? Obviously, the truck knows.
I mean, here's the thing: you could manually plan. Don't get me wrong, but the amount of work that you put into that first trip versus just doing it on your phone.
Yeah.
You know, I'll sit at work and plan out my next vacation.
Yep.
And put it right in my phone and go, oh, it'll take us 7 hours to get there.
Yep.
And the wife will go, I don't know if we want to go there. That's going to be too long. You know, I don't want to be in a car that long. I'm like, you forget we have to stop and charge. But okay, all right.
Yeah. Well, actually, that's another thing we really should save some topics for future podcasts, but I'm just so excited. I did a Twitter thread about like EV road tripping. I actually found I enjoyed the longer stops. Obviously, if you're rushing to your destination or there's an electric plane waiting for you.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's not great. But if you're just making your way to your week-long beach vacation, 40 minutes outside the truck to eat and walk around is not the worst thing. Have you had similar experiences, or is it different with a family? It's like, we just got to get where we're going.
No, it's different with a family because I need that 40-minute stop. I need to get the toddler into the bathroom. I need to feed the little monster in the back seat. And like my wife said, she doesn't like to be cooped up in the car that long. So those stops actually work really well with what we've wanted, never known we've wanted.
Yep.
I had a conversation with a guy in one of my RV camping Facebook groups there. He's like, I got 2,100 miles. I have to make it within 21 hours. And, I'll do 8 hours in the seat. No problem at all. And I'm like, what? Why? Like, even in a gas truck, like I was net. He's like, dump the old fuel tank and I put a 100-gallon tank in the bed. And I'm like, what? Dude, what? That's crazy. Yeah. Oh, I'm a truck driver. I was like, and that's why you have no problem driving 8 hours a day.
Yeah.
I go, that's not the normal use case for anyone.
Yeah.
Just the 40 minutes, usually the truck's done before we're done. Between I'm going to the bathroom, he's going to the bathroom, my wife's waiting for me with the kid, and we all have to take turns anyways. So it's changed the rush of driving somewhere.
Yes.
you know, and recently for me, I've switched my cruise control to the speed limit. In New York, that's not heard of. But I get better range.
People hate you, I'm sure. All those other drivers.
There's other lanes go around me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I'm saving time.
Yeah.
If I floor it for an extra 10 miles an hour over, I have to stop the truck.
Yep.
If I don't, I make it no problem at all.
Yeah.
And I'm turning Blue Cruise on. I'm putting my feet up, and I'm sitting back and letting the truck do its thing.
Yeah.
I don't have a rush anymore. And it's so liberating.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, it's so relaxing to get done with a road trip and go, I don't feel like I'm going to pass out. You know, I don't feel exhausted. I'm rested.
The physical toll on the driver,
yes,
I have noticed, is decreased. Obviously, your day gets a little longer, but I don't feel like I'm at 0% as a human being by the end of it. I feel like I've got a little left in my tank.
Less tension in my shoulders. I have less road rage. I have less worries. You know, the only road rage I have is if somebody can't hold the lane or they're texting as they pass me. You know what I mean?
Yep.
That's it. And I don't. Go ahead, go in front of me, because you know what? You're not going to hit me from in front of me. I'm okay.
Right.
Go right ahead.
Well, speaking of, you mentioned Blue Cruise, which I obviously don't have on my XLT here. I'm very jealous of that. But on my road trip to North Carolina was the first time, whenever I see a Tesla, I'm like, I wonder if they're using autopilot. You know? But it's hard to know. But I was driving through West Virginia, which is not like long straight. It's like you're going through the mountains and stuff.
Oh yeah. Yep.
And a gray, I have this like core memory, or very vividly, gray Model Y goes by, and he's on autopilot, and he's got at least one AirPod in. I can't speak to the other ear, and he's watching Netflix. And I'm like, Jesus God. So that stressed me out a little bit, but I mean, that's my segue into kind of the autonomy or the driver assistance that you're getting to experience in your Ford. I mean, that also probably has to take a huge physical toll off of you as the driver on these road trips.
Yeah, holding your hands up on the steering wheel while you're driving for hours, your shoulders actually, I didn't notice my shoulders felt it until I got this truck and stopped holding onto the steering wheel for hours.
Yep.
Your shoulders feel less tense. Yep. There's, again, like I said, you get out, you feel like you can keep going. You can go spend your day or whatever you're going to do. The way Ford does Blue Cruise, you can't sit there and watch Netflix.
Eyes on the road.
If I take a sip of my coffee, my Yeti mug is just big enough to block my eyes from the camera. It freaks out. It nags on me more than my wife does.
So now you drink it through a straw, is what you're saying?
Nope, you don't. I just let it. I just let it get angry. Okay. I usually talk to it. All right, honey, I'll look at the road in a second. Give me a minute. I need some beer. But yeah, it's very very good at the eye tracking, and the way people drive, autonomous driving needs to happen to prevent more accidents. If people want to choose not to pay attention on the road, I think that's the way we need to go. Because the fatalities just in my area with traffic accidents have been on the rise for years, and it's good to see something out there to help.
Yeah. Well, in West Virginia, we were entering a work zone, and I was tempted. He was going a little faster than me, actually, so he went off in the distance. But I was like, man, I kind of wish I had kept up just to see. But like you said, the safest thing is just let him go on by, and whatever happens, happens. But there was one other thing I wanted to hit on. We were talking about the road tripping, the Blue Cruise. Oh, so segue into a quick hit question. One feature you can't live without now on that is equipped on your Lariat. I mean, we were talking about Blue Cruise. Is that it?
That's my number one. That changed the way we go. I don't worry about driving for 8 hours. I don't worry about being on the road for 8 hours anymore, because I know the truck's going to do most of the work for me. That's huge for me as a driver. I'm usually the main driver in our family. I like to tease my wife and call her the passenger princess.
That's my wife too. She's self-proclaimed.
Mine is now too. She'll admit that all day. And I've always liked driving. I like doing road trips. No one's getting younger. I'm definitely getting older now. So having this it opens so many more roads to us. We've been out to Maine with our camper.
Yeah.
We've been out to Rochester. We've been out to Boston. We've been out to New York City. We've been just anywhere we want to go. Cape Cod was our first road. Second road trip in this.
Yeah.
Anywhere we want to go, the truck just does it for me.
Yep.
It can't get simpler than that. It can't get easier than that for a driver.
Another quick hit that popped into my mind. If the Lightning didn't exist, what EV truck intrigues you the most right now? Because we are in the exciting time where like Silverado's becoming a reality, Cybertruck's becoming a reality. Rivian has been killing it the whole time.
Yep. The market is saturated now, and it's good for business, or for the consumer, at least for competition.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. I absolutely love the Rivians. I don't know if I'd fit in one. I haven't tried. I don't have anybody that I could be like, hey, let me come sit in your Rivian.
Right.
That's close by, at least. Right. I do have some ties with the Northeast Rivian Club.
Cool.
So maybe I could find somebody around here, but
I
don't think I'd fit. I'm 6'8". I've always gotten a 1500 pickup truck because of the length of my legs.
Yeah.
It's hard because I haven't sat in them. You know what I mean? Like
you're thinking they're not going to invite me to Norway again if I say something.
No, that's not it at all. I absolutely love the technology in the Rivian. I love the technology in all of this. But I knew that I could fit in an F-150 because I owned two of them beforehand.
Yeah.
I had no problem putting in the reservation when Ford announced this because I already owned an F-150, and here's the thing: Ford's not going to mess that up. They're not going to mess the best-selling truck up by electrifying. They're going to do it right. So I'm like, I'm putting money down on this. This is the best gamble I've ever made in my life.
Yeah.
I was trying to convince myself that it wasn't, because everyone's, don't buy the first generation. This is snap. I wasn't. I was trying to fight that with the mentality of these guys aren't going to screw us over.
Yeah.
I can't speak to the other ones because I've never sat in them.
Yeah.
That's my big thing is I need to fit comfortably in a truck.
Yep.
The technology, all that stuff comes second to me fitting comfortably in something. Especially that I've started road tripping like a professional now and put 25,000 miles on it. Yeah. So it's hard for me to pick one.
And the beauty is we don't have to because we're
right.
So speaking of future podcasts, I would love to get Sergio on here to talk about his experience. So if anybody's watching, go bug him on Twitter. We will also be bugging him via Twitter. Oh my gosh, there was one other thing I wanted to circle back to, but I would say my feature that I can't live without, it's the Pro Power on board because they again, you watch a million YouTube videos and it's like, that it's a feature of the truck, but you don't understand the impact of it until you've used it the first time. And, it says you can power your tailgate. So sure enough, I tried that and I was like, boy, I'm going to have to find a charger. And then, will I make it home? It's incredible.
Barely any percentage gone, right?
I'm talking like a mile after a 5-hour tailgate with the TV, the PS5. We did a griddle back here to make some food. And so that really, after that moment, it's like you start imagining the possibilities of what you can accomplish with this truck. Like, maybe now at the beach it's just incredible. So
my first camping trip I went on before I bought my camper was actually with this truck. I had an overland tent on the back of it. I had a mini fridge underneath it in the bed.
Yep.
I had the griddle, the coffee pot, a bunch of lights for the campsite. The whole thing was rigged. And I ran it for the entire week.
Wow.
Never had to charge until the night before to drive home. I think it went down, I forget the number. I want to say 6% while we were there. And it was a whole week of powering a coffee pot every morning, which you can barely plug a coffee pot into like your house without it, popping your breaker. So the possibilities are endless, and it's not. I love seeing other owners like what they've done with it. Like one of our members built a house. He was running power saws and stuff off the back of it. that's the fascinating part for me. I don't have a job where I can like bring my truck in and power things off of it.
Yeah. Neither
So
do I.
so seeing people, take these to work sites and do it, like,
Yeah.
one of our members we met at Tom Malagny's house a couple weeks ago.
I'm so jealous that you were there, by the way. That looked so cool.
Dude, again, I got to give a shout out to my buddy Pete from the club. He reached out to Tom and got us a date to do that and get together.
You met the messiah of home EV charging.
The man taught me everything I know about my truck, everything I know about EVs. I owe it all to him, and we actually got to meet face to face, and it was great. It was really he's an amazing host.
Of course.
If you ever get invited, definitely go. He's an amazing host.
The next time that happens, I'm planning my work schedule around driving there.
We actually had a couple of the Great Lakes club members come out from Ohio and make the 8-hour trip.
Well, and seeing the convoys that people were doing on the way there, I'm like, oh, there's that community again. We keep circling back to that word, but like, how cool to be part of that group and have that experience together.
Yep.
It
was fun to. We actually had a third one. I was part of that convoy you're referring to. We had a third truck pull up to us while we were driving, and we thought it was somebody going with us.
Yeah.
I throw my thumbs up out the window as he's coming up to us, and him and his wife's got her hand in her head in the passenger seat. He's giving the thumbs up.
Yeah.
It was funny because we have the same reaction in our truck when I do that. Stop waving at people, like.
My wife would be having none of that.
Yeah, it's totally different, man. I mean, you've the community is just so great to have to be able to make new friends and do some crazy stuff with, and be on this forefront is huge for us.
Yeah. Well, oh gosh, I'm so jealous that you got to go to Tom's. I wish I had a picture queued up of Tom Malagny, who is an amazing EV YouTuber. I literally had the electrician standing in this garage, and I'm watching Tom's video to make sure that I'm having my plug installed up to spec, up to Tom. There it is, up to Tom's suggestion. And so,
State of Charge on YouTube if you're looking it up.
There you go. And that would be a cool guest. Maybe now that you've met him, I'm going to put that in your court. Maybe we could have Tom on. He seems like a really nice guy and very knowledgeable. So thank you, Tom, for teaching us how to be EV owners, or Absolutely. Me, I should say. We have to leave topics to talk about in the future. So this might be a good moment to wrap it up, but I want to gush a little bit and say, I do feel like I made a friend today.
Absolutely.
So it was a huge pleasure to talk to you and share our love of the Lightning. And this, I think the hope, stop me when I get too excited, is that this becomes somewhat regular. Maybe we could have some other Lightning owners on and just talk about their experience and what they love or when they got stranded.
I know a few owners we could call. Absolutely.
Yeah, maybe just 1 or 2 or 20 or 147.
A couple hundred. No big deal.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I hope everybody that tuned in learned something. I know I learned something, and I'll let you know how the in-truck trip planner goes. And if I get stranded, I know where to reach you.
I was going to say, call me. I'll help you.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Thanks again to Joe for being here tonight. And be sure to subscribe to this channel so that you know when the next podcast goes up. Thanks again, everybody.
Thanks, Joe.